Hey friends, this is going to be a really quick introduction. This is not a snow day. I am Kevin Ozar. It is day 34 of quarantine. What we're going to do is go to an interview I did with Dr. James Kelly, also known as my buddy Jim from college. He is living in Dubai and is a professor there, and he had some really interesting takes on the bigger world. So as we are trapped in our houses and maybe thinking locally, this will give us some perspective to think big picture, to think about other people's experiences as these things are happening, and also think a little bit about the way we consume, because that is his subject of expertise. So without further ado, recorded a little bit earlier this week, our official 34th day of quarantine is an interview with Dr. James Kelly. Here we go. All right.
Good.
So I am here with my buddy from college, Jim, who has somehow in the last couple of decades become Dr. James Kelly, professor. How you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. And I'm definitely playing the pretentious look with the AirPods going on at one time.
So, I like it. I feel very, very CNN feed. So we are all kind of locked in our houses here in the U.S. And so this is a fun field trip for us. So James, Doctor, where are you right now? Where are you talking to us from?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much, Kevin, for having me on. I'm talking to you from just outside Dubai in this town called Al Ain, right next to the Oman border. So I'm literally in the middle of the world, in the middle of the desert, where we will now not see anything below 100 degrees for the next 7 months.
And what are you doing in the man?
Yeah, so I'm actually, I guess, semi-retiring from academia, but I'm in my last semester in academia, teaching at the, I think, third best university in the Middle East called United Arab Emirates University. And I've been teaching consumer behavior, strategy, general marketing for better part of 12 years. Not in the Middle East. I was in Philadelphia before, and then about 4 years ago, we moved out here with my family to experience the other, if you will.
For sure. Now you said family, so you're there with your wife and tell us, and your kids. So tell us about the team you've got with you out there.
It is a small tribe. So I have 4 kids, and the oldest is 12, and the youngest is 5, and so everything in between. We've got a 10 and a 7-year-old, and we moved out here. We were living in Philadelphia, a comfortable life, but having lived in Australia, having lived in Japan as an adult, I thought it was just so important that my kids experience something outside the U.S. We were experiencing really a level of, I don't know the right word to say it, but there were opinions being forced upon them about other cultures and people that weren't correct. And I didn't want them to get those opinions formed for them. I wanted them to form their own opinions. And so that was one of the big linchpins of coming out here, was for them to have a different experience, to see a different world. And boy, have they. I mean, we spent a summer in Portugal living on the beach. We've, been to Oman, and they go to school with kids from the UK, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, France, Spain, Middle East, where else? Morocco, South Korea. So they're getting the United Nations flavor of human beings right now. And for us, that there's no better lesson in life to see the world's bigger than a zip code.
For sure. So one of the things that I've been very aware of, and you and I have talked about this, is during this time, it's super easy to just turn in and just kind of think about what's happening in your living room, because it feels like your world is this big, or your neighborhood grocery store. You have talked a lot about the power of travel to broaden your perspective. I think this entire quarantine is a great opportunity for us to not get distracted by right here and take the opportunity to look out, look how connected we are. So give us a little perspective. What is the reaction to COVID-19 and this global pandemic where you live? What's going on there?
Yeah, so, the United Arab Emirates is unique. It's a... be careful how I say this. It's run by sheikhs. It's run by essentially kings. So they can say what they want to have done. There's no democracy around it. And so as soon as the wave started to come from China, beginning of March, everything shut down. And I've literally left my house once in the last 30 days. But the reason is that they have the ability overnight to create a structure to mitigate any of this being spread. And so let me give you an example. If I go to the store and I don't have gloves or I don't have a mask on and I get stopped by the police, it's $1,000 fine. If there's more than one of us in the car at a time, it's a $500 fine. If we are in certain neighborhoods we're not supposed to be in at the certain times, it's a fine. In fact, every night we get a warning at 8 o'clock at night that says they're going to disinfect. And it comes on the phones and it says stay inside for the night, and they're disinfecting, right? So spraying, drones, right? So
Wild.
yeah. So this is stuff that would never actually happen in the US for a multitude of reasons, right? And so it's just a different environment. I think that what you have to do is suspend your cultural system that you're used to and accept the nuances and differences of where you're at. Now, what I will say from a family perspective, man, kids are resilient. Kids are so resilient. Like kids, and you know this too well, kids are so resilient. And Mary and I are panicking. You know, we are scheduled to move back to the States May 20th. That we were scheduled, past tense.
I just want to time that out because a lot of us are bummed about concerts and about gardening and about here in Michigan, maybe we're not going to get a boating season in. You and your six-person family was scheduled to leave the Middle East, where you've been living for 5+ years, and return home, and you now can't. So that's just a little perspective we can.
Yeah.
So you and Mary are freaking out, and what happened?
Well, here's the irony of all of it, right? So, I think again, I don't want to say, I want to be careful the words I choose. I am aspirational about travel because I think travel opens your mind. And so I think that when you start traveling and living different countries, if you're not agile and flexible, you're screwed, right? You can't do it. So, traveling to Africa, like you have to expect the unexpected and be okay to roll with the punches. And so, as we're here, when we see it happening, we're looking for the opportunities and the moments of excellence to focus on those things, not what we can't control, but what we can really focus on moving forward. And so, we went from kids spring break to distance learning to pulling our kids out of school because they're in a British curriculum and actually don't know anything about America. They don't know anything about American education. They don't know about American money. I was telling Kevin, this example, my daughter, she's 10, and my wife was trying to explain to her that a nickel is worth less than a dime, even though the sizes don't represent the actual importance. And she just couldn't get her head around, why is that?
And like I said, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. So I want to time you out right there for a second. And I want to get to some of the stuff you're teaching your kids as you prepare them to come back to the United States. Wouldn't it be interesting if we took that travel mindset of like, I don't know what's going to happen. This is a different culture. They do things differently here. It might not feel comfortable, but it's the right thing to do. And we applied it to living under these circumstances because it's not that different. We're on a bit of a journey here. Yeah. And because we're in our house or our cars in the driveway, life. But the reality is this is extraordinary. We are traveling into a new kind of reality. And that traveler's mindset that I'm doing something in a different culture is a great way to be okay with eating things you're not used to eating or not eating things you want. Or, just the toilet paper analogy is pretty easy to apply here for anyone who's traveled a lot. But I think that's a great way, Jim, to frame this idea that this isn't what I'm used to. And that is okay and maybe even powerful, maybe even useful.
Can I dovetail off that a little bit? And what I would actually say is forget the traveler's mindset. How about have a growth mindset or an opportunity mindset? Because this really is an opportunity, right? And so in that opportunity is to search for those moments and situations where you can try the new thing, be curious about something new. I think what most people are uncomfortable with is this is the most me time they've probably had in 10 years, and they're not sure what to do with that me time. you know, and
For
like,
sure.
you know, and I think that lack of rhythm that you're used to, get up, take a shower, have a coffee, get in the subway or a car, go to work, do your job, come home, feed the kids, go to bed. That routine, when you don't do it, it's vacation. But now that's not vacation, it's your life. And
Yeah.
it's a totally different, you know, if you're not accustomed to working from home or you're accustomed to being in a classroom, like most of your audience is, holy cow, I can imagine that it just blows their mind of how do I manage all of this freedom, excess time, lack of structure. You know, I would imagine your clock is on a 45-minute cycle during the day or however long your period is. And that's the difference. I think what you say about the notion of a travel mindset, I say the notion of a growth mindset, you know, and I think that that's the opportunity that parents have with their kids, right? That parents have with themselves. You know, I was on a podcast this morning, and one of the comments I made is, if parents don't respect teachers now, we're lost. Like, we are lost as a society if we cannot respect the job that they do on a daily basis. So on a side note, I have so much respect and love for you and your field. You have no idea. I think you guys should be paid twice as much as you're paid. And people should stop whining about summer vacations because they don't know how many hours you guys work during the school year. It makes me so angry. Anyhow.
I'm not going to argue any of that either.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning one of the differences in the global education system is that it's very much looks up, whereas in the United States, our education system is often self-referential to our culture. So what are some of the things you're finding that is a difference with your kids who have spent a lot of their early education abroad?
Yeah, so this is my favorite example is, you know, our kids are working through a workbook right now that's American focused, right? And so there was an activity my son, who's 12, had to do. And it was to find all the cities around the world, Paris, Barcelona, Middle East cities, you know, Karachi, whatever. And he's nailing them. He had to find cities in America. He couldn't find any. He has like no concept. They don't know states. They don't know that stuff. And we were just laughing because we're thinking to ourselves, have we failed? I'm like, well, I don't think we failed, but boy, they're going to be in a world of shock when they get to the States next year and realize that they don't actually know where the capitals are, like just the little stuff like that. And I think the other thing that you find when you go to a school that's so mixed in terms of culture, our kids in these environments really find ways to connect beyond the normal way. They really find ways to search for similarities around their journey. And, you know, we're in an expat world where we're at. So all of these kids have this same mentality. New in school, got to find friends, buddy up, you know, and it happens quick. And that's a skill set. And it's a blessing in the long term for sure. Educationally, our kids are in a British curriculum. And I was saying to Kevin earlier that I really have a ton of respect for the British curriculum, especially at the upper end of high school, because these students take, I mean, if you watch Harry Potter's, the O levels, the Newts, these are all like real things they do with different language in the British system. You know, they've got O levels, A levels. I forget, there's another one in there somewhere. And what it does for the students is by year 10, they start honing in on what they're passionate about. And if you think about one of the disconnects we have in the American curriculum system, especially at high school, is there's not passion being instilled. It's dependent on the teacher, not the students taking control. And I think that that's a really big disconnect. And I think the wrong expectations. I think we should be asking our kids, if they don't love math, can they do basic math and give a tip at a restaurant? That's important.
Dude, we talked about that yesterday. And this time home is a perfect time for you to share your passions with your kids.
Yeah.
You're that teacher who's fired up about something. And then allow them to explore their own passions. What do you want to learn about this week? The school I'm at, we believe in the Genius Hour and self-directed curriculum. This is a chance for everyone to be doing their genius project. I mean, Tony Stark got stuck in a cave he built the Iron Man suit. Like, we're all kind of stuck in the cave. What can your kids build? And if it is the Iron Man suit, please drop a comment about that, because I have a lot of questions.
That's pretty good.
So, Jim,
yeah.
So you're a professor too. So I love getting this stuff about your kids, but from with your professor hat on, what are some things? You are a professor, let me see if I get this, of international consumer psychology. Did I get that right?
Yeah, consumer behavior. Sure, that works.
Consumer behavior. So with that lens, what would be some tidbit of knowledge or some hot take that you have about consumer behavior? Because we are all really tuned into how we consume now more than ever, and the way we do it, and ways that we want to consume in the future. So any thoughts around that for us before I let you go? And
so I think this is a really interesting question. It's a complex question, because when you think about the human being, we're a complex individual, and the reasons why we buy aren't always the same. So you have a unique style. You love your Jordan shoes, right?
Yes, I do.
Like, love might actually be an understatement. If there's another word above that, I would use it to describe it.
I think it's lerv. I think Annie Hall, Woody Allen says, above love is lerv.
So you lerv your Jordan shoes, right? And so the thing about that is that for you, consuming those is grossly different from maybe a basketball player who has lots of money. It's a passion thing. So intent is really important. Attitude, perception, motivation are all really important aspects of consumer behavior. So when you think about the global perspective, if you zoom out, the biggest indicator of purchasing habits is going to be culture. Now, what's really interesting, though, is that when you look at the millennial segment, the most common connector is technology, because their access point is so much global compared to what we grew up with our access point. Our access point was the local shops, was whatever trends, whatever fashion used to have Jordan was wearing, Pippen, whoever, right? That was our reference point of what we were going to buy. For me, it was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, super awesome flower print shirts, and the suspenders. That was my go-to, right? However, in the global world and millennial world, and even Gen Z now, and I don't even know what they call my kids' generation, I have no idea. But in that society, my son's online chatting with his friends on Google Chats during the day while he's working. Like, we didn't have that access ever. And so that access automatically makes consumerism global in nature. And the transfusion of products and ideas and celebrityism is so diffused so rapidly in our world that trends are difficult to predict, because most of them are predicted by influencers over the old. I would say they've always been predicted by influencers in the past as well, but now even more so, because that influencer could be in Brazil or can be in Canada, and it doesn't really matter. So it doesn't answer your question. I think one of the things I want to flag is that I'm actually leaving academia and I'm leaving marketing, and I'm actually moving. I have a startup in leadership. So I'm actually leaving one area and going to a totally different, I picked a great time to start a business, arguably. So
sure, Jim, absolutely.
I'm taking the optimist point of view on this one now, Kev.
Yes, you are.
And so I'm actually, in the next 30, 40 days, whenever we can get out of here, we're moving back to the States, and I have a business where I've invested a huge sum of money to hopefully not flop and bankrupt my family all at one time. But besides that, it's a speaking. I'm just kidding. It's not speaking. That would be an awful time to leave for speaking. So yeah.
Yes, I agree.
So anyhow,
if I could try.
Yeah.
What you're saying is the way that we consume is definitely influenced by our culture. Yeah. And if we want to take a look at how our culture drives us to consume, now's a great time to examine that.
Yeah, sorry, that was a much better way to say it than I said it.
That's okay. That's okay, man. That's all right. You and I have been a good team for a long time. I'm happy to help out. And to take a look at the differences with what our generation and what a younger generation, and how we interact and influence each other, and how we consume and what we consume and why. So
let's think of
you're starting
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I think this is it's a really interesting topic, because when you think about culture, the American culture is predicated on consumption. And that is a false narrative, because it usually leads to one of our biggest problems, besides a dwindling middle class, is the notion we have nothing in the bank ever. right? We have no emergency funds. And that fundamentally is a problem, especially right now when the government is doing what it can, but isn't enough to sustain what's going to be happening for the next probably 3 to 6 months. From a generational standpoint, as a parent, I think it's important not to judge your kid on the trends that they have, but to embrace those trends. As long as they're not harmful, right? There are going to be things that you can learn about your child through what they are doing and mimicking that is good and bad. But as long as you're doing it in a judgment-free way, that's really important, you know?
So Jim, I look forward to your TikTok channel and us seeing you breaking down. That's a good start. That's a good start. I want to see Renegade out of you in a week.
Yeah.
So, Jim, all good stuff. Tell us how we can stay in touch with you and track your journey, your family, not just travels back to this hemisphere, but also as you start up your business. How can we stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so the business is called Q Change, the letter Q, Change, and it's a software company. So that's the first place to start. It's a way to influence behavior in real time and create accountability through feedback through your peers, all real time on your phone. If you want to learn more about me, I have a book that I wrote in 2018 called The Crucible's Gift, 5 Lessons from Authentic Leaders that Thrive in Adversity. I interviewed 120 leaders around the world, from Fortune 2 companies, Google exec, all the way up to entrepreneurs and everything in between. About their personal journey, not about what they do. I didn't really care about what they do or did, but I really cared about their personal journey. So it's a narrative of my story and their story and kind of what it means to be authentic. It's something that you would totally embrace, not necessarily the book, you may not like the book, but the concept you would totally embrace for sure. And so you can actually get that free on my website starting Friday on the website, the digital version of it. We're giving that away for this time. We kind of felt like it's pretty chaotic and there's a lot of really important stories in the book that can give you a lens of hope and comfort, if you will, through some of the stories that are in the book. So, and then the other way is, God, I'm really crap at social media. I'm not near as good as you. So I would say Twitter and Facebook, and I don't even know my handles on that, but I would say subscribe to Kevin. He'll tell you where to go. Just go down below, hit the subscribe button. He knows. He's the man of the town. We just look the same with the same hairstylist. That's it.
It's true. It's true. And when we met, we had glorious hair. You really did. You especially. College water polo player. You had great hair.
I did have great hair. Yeah.
Jim, I will drop a link to your website in the about, and if people subscribe, comment, like, they'll find you. Thanks so much for your time. Stay safe. Stay inside. I don't want you getting those big fines, and we appreciate your time so much. I hope your family has a safe and healthy journey the next couple months.
Yeah. And I hope you guys stay safe. And thanks, Kevin, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
For sure, buddy. Go Flyers.
That's right. Always.
Always.